Coming up on Arirang News, North Korea and Russia sign a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement following their summit, agreeing to provide military assistance to each other without delay if one faces armed aggression. President Yoon vows to make South Korea's Gyeongsangbuk-do Province Northeast Asia's manufacturing innovation hub by speeding up the construction of a highway crossing a bay in Pohang and establishing a small modular reactor industrial complex in Jeju. South Korea's auto exports last month rose to a record high for any May, thanks to the popularity of eco-friendly cars and the rise in shipments to North America. Good evening, it's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Ji-young. We start with North Korea and Russia elevating their military cooperation to a new level by signing the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement. They've agreed to provide military assistance to each other without delay if one faces armed aggression. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung has the experts' take on whether this means the revival of Pyongyang and Moscow's military alliance.
North Korea and Russia have agreed to offer military assistance without delay if either one is under attack. This agreement was inked between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin on Wednesday in Pyongyang as they agreed to elevate their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership following a summit. North Korea state-run media on Thursday disclosed the full text of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement. Article 4 states that if one of the countries is placed in a state of war due to an armed invasion, the other must deploy all means at its disposal without delay to provide military and other assistance. There are mixed views as to whether this can be regarded as an establishment of a security alliance. But Professor Lee Mul-chul at Gyeongnam University said there is no doubt this is the case.
An alliance means there is a common enemy, and because they've agreed to provide military assistance in the event of an emergency, we can say that they have established an alliance. Without a doubt, the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement symbolizes a military and security alliance.
He also added that the agreement lays a legal foundation to back North Korea's arms transfer to Russia for use in the war in Ukraine. On the other hand, Yang Uk, a research fellow at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, said North Korea's goal is to make it seem like Pyongyang and Moscow are reviving their military alliance. In 1961, North Korea and the former Soviet Union signed a treaty of friendship and mutual assistance, which was scrapped 5 years later. It included a provision for automatic military intervention, identical to that of Article 4 of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement.
One thing we need to pay attention to is whether the context is the same. In 1961, the two countries had a military alliance heading in the same direction as socialist countries. The current relationship between Russia and North Korea, however, is a comprehensive strategic partnership, so the degree of military intervention cannot be the same. There's a limit to seeing this as a revival of the military alliance just because the phrases are the same.
With the new Pyongyang-Moscow agreement potentially warranting automatic military intervention, South Korea would now have to prepare for a possible Russian intervention in the future. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And what are the broader implications of this latest summit between Moscow and Pyongyang for Seoul? Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jung-sil takes a closer look.
With the latest agreement between Russia and North Korea being described by Western media as possibly the strongest cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang since the end of the Cold War, some experts in South Korea say it's an opportunity for Seoul to reconnect with Russia.
The outcome of the summit suggests that in some sense, Russia could have a bigger effect on North Korea in terms of the issue of conflict on the Korean peninsula. This means Russia can become more valuable to South Korea. And I think there's a chance that Russia is trying to reach out to South Korea by using the relationship with the North.
Another expert in Russian studies, Professor Chung Jae-won of Kookmin University, says while deepening Moscow-Pyongyang ties do pose a threat to regional security, it's important to understand and analyze the situation calmly.
Russia would not have reached out to North Korea like this without the war in Ukraine. So depending on how the war ends, it's going to have a big impact on the relationship between Russia and North Korea. When it all settles down, the relationship between them will become estranged, and Russia will approach South Korea.
Another expert said it is important to return to basics at a time like this.
We gotta pay attention to the most fundamental thing that we need to do, and that is strengthening relationship with like-minded liberal countries. In the meantime, it's still important for South Korea not to sever the diplomatic channels with Russians and even with North Korea.
Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
South Korea will consider sending weapons support to Ukraine as it condemns North Korea and Russia's pact to strengthen military and economic ties. National Security Advisor Chang Ho-jin on Thursday delivered the South Korean government's stance after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to assist each other in the face of armed aggression. Chang said Seoul sees any form of cooperation that provides direct or indirect support towards building up North Korea's military as a violation of United Nations Security Council sanctions. While South Korea has maintained a policy of not providing lethal support to Ukraine, Chang hinted that the government will now have to reconsider.
There are currently 1,159 items that are subject to export controls to Russia that have been used since the Ukraine war. But the government has decided to add 243 new items. So a total of 1,402 items will be subject to sanctions in the future. And the issue of arms support to Ukraine will be re-examined.
Chang further said Seoul will further strengthen extended deterrence through the South Korea-U.S. alliance and their trilateral cooperation system with Japan to neutralize North Korea's nuclear weapons and missiles. Shifting gears, President Yoon was back on the road again today to host a policy discussion after more than a month's pause due to diplomatic events. And this time around, he visited Gyeongsangbuk-do Province to promise support for key infrastructure and different industries to boost the local economy. Our Kim Do-yeon explains what those are.
Gyeongsangbuk-do Province as Northeast Asia's manufacturing innovation hub. That was the topic of President Yoon Suk-yeol's 26th policy discussion with citizens on Thursday at the province's Yeongnam University. Among the many things that President Yoon pledged to make this happen were improvements to the underdeveloped transportation infrastructure.
교통 인프라 확충은 경북의 제주 혁신 허브로의 도약을 위해서 반드시 필요하고 또 도민들의 삶의 질 향상에도 필수적입니다. 먼저 사업계획 검토 막바지 단계인 3조 4천억 규모의 영일만 횡단 고속도로 건설을 빠르게 추진하겠습니다.
This would connect two different ports in Pohang, the nation's steel mill city on the east coast. It'll be 18 kilometers long and will contain bridges. On top of this, President Yoon has pledged to support the establishment of a 300 billion won, or around $216 million industrial complex for SMRs, or small modular reactors, in Gyeongju, another city in the province. The new type of nuclear energy technology is being sought after by countries around the world to get ahead in the technology, and President Yoon is looking to make Gyeongju the nation's SMR manufacturing hub. He also pledged to support the region's hydrogen energy production sectors, tourism, as well as agricultural business. Meanwhile, President Yoon praised the region for its history of providing a basis for the nation's economic success. The region is where the Saemaeul Undong came from, a community-driven development program in the 70s when it was still battling poverty, a movement that has been credited as making the miracle on the Hangang River possible. In fact, Yeongnam University has a department dedicated to studying the movement and international development, with many up-and-coming African young students coming to learn about it. This was brought up during the recent Korea-Africa Summit as well.
새마을 운동과 우리의 발전 경험을 학문화한 영남대의 새마을 학은 지난 한아프리카 정상회의에서도 각국 정상들에게 많은 관심과 주목을 받았습니다. 많은 국가의 리더들이 또 리더가 될 청년들이 이곳에서 국가 발전에 관한 공부를 하고 큰 기여를 했다는 얘기를 아프리카 각국 정상들에게 많이 들었습니다.
This 26th policy discussion was participated by around 100 government officials and citizens, including business leaders in hydrogen and nuclear energy, entrepreneurs, and local residents. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
President Yoon has replaced 3 vice ministerial officials, appointing seasoned bureaucrats on environment, labor, and intellectual property. According to his office on Thursday, Yoon's current Secretary for Climate Change, Lee Byung-hwa, has been appointed as Vice Environment Minister, having previously served as Director of Climate Change Policy for the ministry. Presidential Secretary for Employment and Labor, Kim Min-seok, was named as Vice Minister of Labor with his expertise in labor management issues. And current Trade Ministry spokesperson Kim Wan-gi will head the Korea Intellectual Property Office after 30 years of experience in the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy. Kim is expected to promote technological innovation and intellectual property protection during his tenure. South Korea's auto exports last month rose to a record high for any May, mainly thanks to the popularity of eco-friendly cars and the rise in shipments to North America. Our An Sung-jin has the numbers.
South Korea's overseas shipments of automobiles showed a strong performance for the month of May. According to the Trade Ministry on Thursday, auto exports hit a new monthly high that month, reaching $6.5 billion, an on-year increase of nearly 5%. The cumulative value from January to May this year was also a record high for the period, with a figure above $30 billion. Exports of eco-friendly cars saw a surge, with hybrid vehicles up by nearly 50% in May compared to the year before. It's the third month in a row for the monthly figure for green cars to stay above the $2 billion threshold. The Trade Ministry mostly attributed this to an increase in outbound shipments to the North American market. Data showed that exports to the region jumped by 36% on-year from January to May, pulling up the cumulative value. Similarly, shipments to Australia also rose, with new hybrid car models from Hyundai and Kia on the market. However, exports to Europe fell due to increased production in factories in Czechia and Slovakia. Though domestic production remains firm based on global demand, the ministry is looking to see further increases later this year as new models of electric vehicles will be released, while another factory in Korea begins operation. High demand for eco-friendly cars was also seen domestically, with sales up 10% on year in May. The Trade Ministry pledged to strengthen support and provide export vouchers amid a rise in sea transport fares to reach the $100 billion export goal by the end of this year. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Summer is well underway in Korea, with heat wave advisories issued across the country. As this summer looks to be hotter, the authorities are gearing up to meet higher electricity demand, while at the same time they hope to ease burdens for power bills. Our Moon Hye-ryun explains.
With this year's summer expected to be hotter and wetter, the government is preparing for high electricity demand. During an annual meeting to discuss summer electricity supply and demand on Thursday, The Energy Ministry said that it expects the maximum demand to peak at 92.3 gigawatts in the second week of August. This is similar to last summer, but the government warns that it could surpass such levels if there's cloud coverage, lowering electricity production from solar panels, and demand rises in the capital region. A maximum supply capacity of just over 104 gigawatts has been secured for this summer, with electricity authorities set to operate a total of 21 nuclear power plants. This includes the new Unit 2 at the Shinhanul plant that began commercial operations this April. In order to prevent blackouts and prepare for unexpected situations such as generator failures, the government has prepared a series of measures. In case of reserve power being insufficient to meet demand, it plans to test-operate newly constructed generators such as the Ulsan GPS power station. Managing demand is also crucial, and the government plans to do so by promoting low energy usage. Public institutions will take additional measures such as turning air conditioners off during peak hours in the afternoon from July to August, and raising indoor temperature standards if reserve power is running low. As concerns over high energy prices rise, the government aims to ease such burdens by raising the value of energy vouchers for vulnerable groups, from an average of 43,000 Korean won or just over $30 to 53,000 won. A system to enable households and small business owners that pay more than 100,000 won per month to pay their bills in installments could also be implemented. Electricity authorities are due to set a countermeasures period starting next Monday through to September 6th, during which they will monitor real-time supply and demand. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Amid the prolonged medical dispute, the government has announced its plans to create a new medical supply system, which will be set by September. In the meantime, professors at one of the country's major hospitals are voting on whether to continue their walkout into next week. Our Yoon has the latest.
The medical dispute continues in South Korea with no breakthrough between the government and the medical community. And on Thursday, the Presidential Special Committee on Medical Reform held its fourth meeting. It announced its plans for a new two-step system to manage the supply of medical personnel by September. According to Chief Do Yeon-hong, there will be two special committees. One comprised of experts that will discuss the supply of medical professionals, which will then report to the decision-making body. The second is the final decision-making body, which will be led by the health minister.
Conducting estimates through research as needed for the supply of medical personnel and workforce policy decisions has frequently resulted in social conflicts. Therefore, the committee has agreed to systematize the decision-making processes to enhance rationality and societal trust in healthcare workforce policies.
These organizations will address workforce policies, including adjustments to university enrollments, which have been a long-held point of dispute between the government and the medical community. Opposing the government's plan to expand the medical school quota, medical professors at Seoul National University Hospital and its affiliate hospitals began an indefinite walkout on Monday. An emergency committee from the hospitals held a meeting on Thursday to vote on whether to continue the strike into next week. The health ministry, during a briefing on Thursday morning, urged the Korean Medical Association to reconsider its indefinite strike starting on June 27th and resolve issues through dialogue with the government. The walkout plan, announced by the Korean Medical Association on Tuesday by its president, Lee Myung-taek, however, is facing criticism within other areas of the medical community, calling it a unilateral decision, including the Korean Intern Resident Association. Meanwhile, the Korea Medical Association held a press conference on Thursday, announcing the establishment of a countermeasure committee encompassing all doctor associations. They stated that unless there is a change in the government's stance on the demands, an indefinite strike will be discussed on the 22nd, during which the first meeting will be held. The Korea Severe Disease Association on the same day requested the government hold a public hearing to discuss the deployment of doctors with foreign licenses to provide medical services in the country. Lee Eun-hee, Arirang News.
Jeju, South Korea's southernmost resort island, has recently been developing special interest tours to attract more foreign tourists to visit there and thus boost the local economy. Our Park Gun went to Jeju to experience one of these.
Popular tourist destination Jeju Island has big plans to grab the attention of foreign tourists by offering a diverse range of activities. Data from the Jeju Tourism Organization showed that from January to April 2024, there was a nearly 440% increase in the number of foreign tourists on year. And to coincide with the boost in tourist numbers, Jeju is preparing to launch several special interest tours, or SITs, with a wide variety of activities, including golf, horse riding, cycling, and more. As part of a pre-release program, Jeju has been running familiarization tours since March for people working in the tourism industry, as well as members of activity clubs from different countries. The tour I joined included people developing tourism programs for Chinese youngsters. An official I spoke to said the program was developed under the terms of the joint declaration from the recent trilateral summit between Korea, Japan, and China, which aims to increase personal exchanges between teenagers from those countries.
I'm out at sea near Jeju Island on an exciting yacht ride taking in the sea air. This is just one part of the island's special interest tour that's soon to be launched.
Two Haenyeo women, divers who harvest seafood without the use of breeding apparatus, were also on board as part of the tour for tourists to learn more about Haenyeo culture. During this trip, they returned from their dive with seaweed and sea urchins to share with the group.
I hope a lot of foreign people come and see for themselves and know more about Haenyos.
Kayaking in a transparent kayak on the emerald-colored sea and racing down 3 different tracks in electric carts were also part of the tour program. There was also a guided tour of Yongmori Beach and its dragon head-shaped cliff made by the volcano, which aims to add educational value for youngsters that will participate in the special interest tours in the near future.
Jeju travel used to be shopping-oriented, but has been changing to an experience-oriented thing, like visiting restaurants. It's good so that people can experience Jeju culture, food, and customs in depth.
As Jeju aims to bring in many more foreign tourists from different countries, eyes are on whether these special interest tours will add vitality to the region's tourism. 박건우, Arirang News, Jeju.
While the first heat wave of the summer warning was issued in Gyeongsangbuk-do Province, the heat wave continued in central inland areas today. Tomorrow, the daytime temperature will rise to 33 degrees in Seoul. In the southern parts of the country, skies will be cloudy with less heat, but it will still be hot due to high levels of humidity. Unlike inland areas, Jeju Island is currently having its first rainy season of the summer. While the heavy rain warning has expanded to most parts of Jeju Island, heavy rain of about 30 millimeters per hour is falling across the island. Extra care is necessary. Tomorrow morning, Gwangju, Busan, and Jeju will start off at 22 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 32 in Chuncheon, Daejeon, and Gwangju, 31 degrees. The rainy season will begin in the southern parts of the country this weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Well, that brings an end to this newscast tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the most up-to-date news tomorrow morning. Good night.